Hello, thank you for joining us. This is Platform. I'm Ruth Aguela. Poverty reduction is a task before any government based on its importance in measuring a nation's developmental growth. And poverty reduction remains one of the top priorities for the present administration, which is pegged in its 8-point agenda. The federal government continues to demonstrate commitment towards reducing the poverty rate with focus on job creation through skills development, access to financing for small and medium-sized enterprises, among other interventions. Going by Nigeria's humanitarian crisis that the nation is dealing with, the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction has a mandate of ensuring that federal government's policies towards poverty reduction are effectively carried out. Recently, the ministry brought together humanitarian actors for a 2-day national roundtable dialogue in order to create a holistic approach in humanitarian coordination across the country. Now, part of the submissions is to address the complexities of humanitarian crisis in the country through sustainable financing, strengthen resilience for Nigeria, upscaling interagency cooperation, and foster a network of trust and transparency in meeting humanitarian needs across the country. What is next for the ministry in ensuring practical solutions beyond the usual metrics? On Platform, we will be looking at ways of upscaling humanitarian coordination for Nigeria. And our guest is the Minister of State for Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction, Dr. Yusuf Tanko Sununu. Thank you so much for joining us, Honorable Minister.
Well, thank you for having me.
And just before we bring in our panelists, let's let you in on a bit of his profile. Dr. Yusuf Tanko Sununu has served as Minister of State, Ministry of Education under the present administration, a medical doctor with specialty in obstetrics and gynecology. Prior to his appointment, he represented Yauri, Shanga, and Ngaski Federal Constituency of Kebbi State in the House of Representatives. He has many publications in peer-reviewed journals, including The Lancet. Dr. Sununu belongs to several professional bodies, some of which the Nigeria Medical Association, Associate Member, World Medical Association, and Life Member of the World Association of Laparoscopic Surgeons. A doctor now doing humanitarian business. Well done, sir.
Thank you.
All right, our panelist on Platform is a correspondent from Garden newspaper, Tina Abeko. Tina, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Always a pleasure being here.
All right, Tina is a humanitarian correspondent, and we're pleased to have you here. All right, Honorable Minister, just recently, the ministry brought together humanitarian actors from the international community cut across different sectors. So tell us, going by the fallout of that roundtable dialogue, fill us in on the communique that was, brought forth after the whole roundtable dialogue.
Well, thank you very much once more for having me, and let me also, as usual, commend the management of the Nigerian Television Authority for giving us this wonderful opportunity to always come forward to explain to Nigerians what the government is doing. Communication is a key factor to development, and it also builds trust in citizenry, because when you are not informed, you always assume nothing is happening.
Yes.
And therefore, we want to thank you once more for this rare opportunity. Well, we had a 2-day meeting on the 25th and 26th of this month, and major issue is to see how can we bring all the stakeholders, as you mentioned, to a common ground where we all agree on how to fashion our humanitarian interventions so that it can be more effective, resilient, and can sustain the test of time. And that's why even if you look at the theme of the 2 days roundtable discussion is bridging the gap between policy and practice for a resilient future humanitarian future for Nigeria. It goes to show that from the team that we really agree that there is need for a strong and coordinated approach, and 2, there is a gap within the system and the delivery of humanitarian intervention. And lastly, that what we have right now is not resilient enough. A resilient humanitarian intervention is the one that will be able to stand the test of time during shock and will be able to recover quickly so that normal activity can be restored, and that's not what is happening. So over the deliberation, the participation ranges from governmental and non-governmental activists. In the government, we try to involve the federal government, that's through our ministry and its agencies, many key ministries like budget and economic planning, agriculture, education, regional development, and then we also move down to involve state and local governments in our own undertaking. And then we also have development partners, and ably led by the United Nations office here in Abuja, that is also the major sponsor of the dialogue. And one aspect of it that must be clear-cut, before we came in, the ministry has suffered a lot of image problems.
Yes.
And then from so far the interaction we have been having with the development partners and most especially United Nations, they have we have succeeded in regaining their confidence that they can now make their resources available for us so that we can utilize their platform to further advance the humanitarian intervention. Now, what are the key outcomes in our communique? One of the key outcomes is that we need a comprehensive approach so that we can have a comprehensive system and strategy for engagement. You see, that is very, very important, rather than leaving it just anyhow, anybody's approach. We also realize that there is also a gap in partnership, and therefore there is scope for us to have a coordinated approach, collaboration, and very strong partnership between all tiers of government and development partners. Let's take, for example, if you look at the humanitarian issues, there are issues that require holistic approach.
Yes.
And sometimes it's not only a mandate of one ministry.
Yeah.
It's a collaboration.
So you have in finance, when you go there, funding is an issue, so they can have a role to play. If you go to budget, there is need for data plan and many other aspects. If you go to education, for instance, you cannot fight poverty, eradicate this, and without you addressing the issue of education of out-of-school children,
Exactly.
because these are the group. And when you go to agriculture too, you need to address issues that are of concern. So we want to have that coordination, a strong coordinating mechanism that will give us this. And then the other issue that we also realize as a gap in the whole system is lack of actual data that we are going to use in terms of our coordination, planning, monitoring, and tracking of what we are doing. So that it is resolved at that time that we should have a credible data that is credible. Not only data, but data that can be repeated and can be traced, so that whatever we said we have done, we have an evidence that we can back it and we can track it and it can be done. Okay. For instance, now, if you look at let's say, internally displaced person, depending on where the source of data is, you have different figures to play with. Yes. So it goes to show that really for us to be able to track our activities, we must have a strong data that is reliable, reproducible, and can be tracked. Okay. Otherwise, it becomes a serious issue. We also look at the issue of funding, which is also very important, and there is a need for us to work globally. As out of that discussion, to see how we can, first of all, we take into cognizance the current statement by the United States government, which has affected virtually all the funding mechanisms within the country. And then not only that, globally, there is also paucity of funds, with everybody trying to now take care of self-distance. And then in our engagement with the United Nations is also changing its focus from this year, 2025, rather than giving you fish. They will now try to see how we can collaborate together, teach us on how to catch the fish our own. So what is in whole issue, we have to see how can we manage our lean resources effectively for a proper intervention that will reflect and improve the life of a average Nigerian who is currently this. And then we also major issue that we also recognize that what are the major issues of the humanitarian crisis, or that is bringing humanitarian crisis. And one major issue is the issue of the climate change and insurgency. Exactly. Climate change has been one of the major issues. If you look at it now, look at our river banks. Once there is rain now, the capacity of our rivers, most especially River Benue and River Niger, has remarkably reduced. So we are now bringing trying to see how we can develop a proactive approach.
Okay, so let me come in here. I know that you've reeled out a lot that came out. It's a comprehensive document, I want to believe. But let's begin to dissect them one after the other. Tina,
Yes,
I'm sure you were itching.
I was very, yes. Honorable, you mentioned the issue of funding. We know without funding, we're crippled to do anything when it comes to humanitarian intervention. What are some of the definitive commitments we have from our partners in terms of funding with the rainy season just at the door?
Yes, we have a lot of commitment from the partners. Let me first of all, the commitment of the government itself, the political will of Mr. President to ensure that humanitarian intervention has to be effective.
Yes.
For certain reason, actually, President made it clear. You see, I'm a medical doctor. When you have a fracture and you want to set that fracture, definitely you must inflict pains. And you need a buffer or anesthesia to reduce the pain.
True.
And right now we are undergoing reform in Nigeria. And what is that? Because our economy has broken. Mr. President wants to reset that broken economy. And therefore it may likely have to inflict some pains. And that pains need to have a buffer. And that buffer needs to be provided by the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction. So we have money appropriated and money in the service-wide board that we're going to use. Commitment on the, we also have to look at other funding, and that's where we now come with locally. We come up with initiatives to see how we can utilize private partnership in Nigeria.
Yes.
And that's why during the
Very
summit,
important.
you see a lot of active participation of our private organizations to see how they can support this. But they are also coming there with a condition, which we also which is in tandem with anti-corruption stand of Mr. President, that they are ready to key in and give in their resources, hard-earned profit and whatever they have, for us to see how we can rescue Nigerians through our humanitarian intervention. But on the account of the fact that there must be accountability and transparency.
Exactly.
And I think also that's what we have also, as part of our communique, we observed that there must be a strong accountability and transparency framework in our discharge of duties so that we can restore the confidence of Nigerians. And we can only do that, what we say also, still before when you have an adequate data. For instance now, if I say I've intervened in 500 people in a community,
Where are
and
the
I
numbers?
cannot be able to now say that this is the evidence,
Yes.
and they can be contacted through their digital or whatever identity you can, it will be suspicious.
Yes, and you know, Honorable Minister, you've just raised a salient point, because that has been the issue over time concerning the ministry. Now, you said that you've reached out to, like you said, 500 Nigerians. Who are these people beyond just numbers that they're
No, I'm
seeing?
just citing an example.
Yes, I know. I'm just saying that data is very critical.
Yes.
So I want you to tell us how the ministry is going to leverage on this data management. I know there's a national social register.
Yes.
But again, how do you collate
How
these
do we
numbers
match the
into the
numbers
National
with-
Social Register?
Yes, what we are going to do is, for instance, we are going to deploy technology.
Okay.
And also, I think that's also one of the major reasons that the president suspended the program, but that has also been lifted because it must be accountable and reflect the as aspiration of people. Now, you always say, previously, you said that some would say 20 billion has been disposed to so community, and people will wonder, why are those people? How was it disbursed?
Yeah.
You understand? So now what is it? Okay, everything, we must, right now, as I'm talking to you now, we have enumerators, round set going around to verify the National Social Register we have. Wow. Because at that time, we are, you know,
Excellent.
it's a where you go in and win some people to come to bring them into a cluster. For instance, the first batch of the DC was 5 million people that were harvested from the National Social Register that have received their first tranche of humanitarian intervention of the 75,000 per household. But what happened was that after the first, all the 5 million have gotten their DC, it was realized that majority of the people that have gotten that tranche do not have verifiable data that can be ascertained that really they have received that money. So that's how it had to be stopped. When it was received, out of that 5 million, it's only 1.4 million that actually have their digital data and they can be verified. So for them, they have received their first, second, and third tranches. Good. And now what we are doing now is to see the enumerators that are there in the field validating how they can validate the remaining 3.6 million Nigerians or households that are going to benefit for their second and third tranches. And when that is done, the remaining out of the over 18 million we have, we now also go to second level and see how we can also get them there. See those who have digital identity, and then the remaining that do not have the digital identity will also be validated and get there. And once we completed with that, we now move over to see how we can also expand the register by bringing in new people into the register.
Okay. So Honorable Minister, sir.
Yeah.
You mentioned here about interagency collaboration, interpartnership, which is very, very critical. Every year, Nigeria has this recurring humanitarian crisis of flooding. Yeah. The rivers getting filled. And we have this particular dam in Kenya that will always flow down to Nigeria, and then there is a flood.
The Lacto Dam.
Yes. How do we hope to extend this partnership, even outside Nigeria, to our partners like in Kenya, so that we can manage the season to reduce the level of humanitarian crisis we have in Nigeria?
Yes, that's why we have, when we are doing a lot of this, and we look at the interagency, let's not start from interagency, let's say intra-ministry. Even in the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, between the ministry and agencies, hitherto before now, we don't have that strong collaboration. Humanitarian department will be doing something that disability department, which they share common this are not aware. And you understand, and even the commission of persons with disability are distant. So there's that synergy and collaboration. And so we started with that intra-ministry, interagency, and we now move to intra-ministry, and we have moved out to interagency. And that's why you see in that summit roundtable we had, you find that all the relevant agencies, including security formations, were all there, so that we can put it together and agree to a common document that we all own it, and we are ready to abide by its provisions in terms of execution of our activities. Now, when that's why when you see even the new ministry, the Ministry of Regional Development, they are there. And we are now going to escalate it to even involve regional coordinations. Good. And that's why you see humanitarian intervention is not only limited to one country. Exactly. Because I mentioned that it is a multifactorial in terms of a component that will bring us to that. So we must be able to reach out to our neighbors. Maybe you were there. I even made an observation at that time. If you look at it now, why do we have problems? Yes, we know that dams are going down. But the question is, consider the capacity right now of River Niger and River Benue, and compare it with 20 years back. You know that definitely the sun has come in and sun fill our rivers and shrink, thereby reducing the capacity. If before, for example, the rivers can contain up to 1,000 liters without flooding, as of today, with 200 liters, there will be flooding. So it means we have to look at, and not only that, the worst part of it, whenever there is flooding, go and look at the consistency of that, the soil in that. Those areas that before you can farm rice, when there is flooding, it comes with sand. And that sand will now cover up and change the topography of the whole land, making farming difficult. You won't know that except if you are into irrigation farming. Where before, in my area, where I came from, KB, you know, we are good in rice farming, that you can only maybe irrigate your farm maybe once in a week. Or in some places, you can't, once you plant your thing, you just wait for you to harvest. Now, because of the sand that has overtaken the actual land we have initially, you need to pump, you use either your solar pump or petrol pump or CNG pump to water your land almost on daily basis.
You know, Honorable Minister, it's good
that's why we say there's need for this holistic approach.
Yes, and that's where I want to pick up from, that holistic approach. Now, at the sub-national levels, the state governments have critical roles to play because they are directly involved with their own state people. You can do your part at the federal level, but there must be a synergy with the state government. Now, how, based on the fallout of the roundtable, I noticed there were no state governors involved in the roundtable dialogue.
Yes,
why did we have that? Because you need a state government.
Yes, state governors were not there, but state government were represented by the commissioners of humanitarian affairs and their permanent secretary. So the state is adequately represented. And if you even look at our program, we went down into breakout session. We have two major breakout sessions. The second breakout session, which is also key, it divides Nigeria into geopolitical zone: northwest, northeast, north central, south-south, southeast, southwest. And they all went and have this, and we came back to a plenary session and report were presented. One good finding is that we realized that despite the fact that all of us, there is national common dimension that is causing humanitarian crisis, all the states.
Yes.
But there are some specific
key states
in each state.
Yes.
And our intervention is going to also be in such a way that while we have some national uniform intervention, but there are also key intervention that we are going to listen.
Because they're peculiar.
Yes,
this crisis is peculiar.
What I'm trying to say, yeah. And even if you look at the multi-dimensional poverty index report, you find that the dimension there we look at contribute to poverty and contribute to humanitarian crisis in different proportion in each geopolitical zone. For instance, now, let's see, if you go to Northwest, two things contribute to poverty mostly: insurgency and out-of-school children, which are core. If you go to Southeast, the contribution of out-of-school children is not much there. But you see there environmental degradation following erosion and what have you. It will be a major this thing. If you go to places like Bayelsa, home situation will be more important in contributing to what you have, their poverty and humanitarian crisis. Because the poor place is almost waterlogged, you need to reclaim land for you to have a house.
Yeah.
So what will take you, let's say if you had to require 30 million in Sokoto to have an average house, if you go to Bayelsa, you may require almost more than 300 million for you to have an average house. So that means when you come to your key intervention, you must be able, while looking at the general, you must also have a key intervention that are regional specific and also state specific and even local government specific. Because even in the same local government, there will be variation from one local government to the other.
True.
So these are these. So all these are known to us, and we are going to work it in such a way. And then what is all these things? At the subnational level, that's why we carry them along.
Yes.
And then there is one major gap that we have also identified in humanitarian intervention in Nigeria, is the fact that unlike education, health, agriculture, establishment, and many other aspects of governance that have their council. You can have council on establishment, you have council on agriculture, you have council on education.
Yes.
That we don't have council on humanitarian affairs and poverty reduction. And this is one of the steps we are following. As soon as this thing, we present that memo to the Federal Executive Council, so that this year we'll have the inaugural Council on Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction. If we have that council, it means we can come together, develop a policy that is owned by all of us from the grassroots level up to the federal level, and then with key development partners finding their way to key in so that we can streamline our activities, which will make it more cost effective, and then we will be able to track our outcomes, and we will be able to say that, look, what we are doing in Sokoto is also replicated with some specific differences that have to be taken into consideration when you come to Benue State.
Okay. Honorable Sir,
yes.
You mentioned data, which I know is very sensitive, and which I know there could be one or two challenges when you want to geotag your intervention. Can you speak more on that? Well,
you see, when you say we have digital you see, we are a governmental organization, and we also believe, and President Bola Ahmed Tinubu believes in collaborations. So we are not going solo.
Okay.
We have Ministry of Digital Economy. Yes. We have NIMSI. We have many organizations that we have all come into a round table, even before going to that table, and we have agreed. And even today, we had a meeting just when I said I saw you there.
Yes.
I was thinking you were the one at that meeting. What we have discussed, we are trying to see now, very soon we are making strategic effort to see how we can make a homegrown school feeding program very strategic, and then beautiful. Outcome and result oriented, And we all agree that for us to do that, we have to also have a strong data that is reproducible and that is technology driven. And NIMSI is there, and we have agreed that in the next few days, NIMSI will dust their gadgets and start enumerations. And they are also, NIMSI is also the one that is also doing the enumeration for the National Social Register together with the state. And they are the one composing that addition. So we are going to kill two birds with one stone.
Okay.
As they are updating the NASCO, the Register for National Social Security, they are also creating another page for the homegrown feeding program. Oh. And not only that, even our Commission for Disability, there is ongoing discussion to see how we can get record of all those. What we are trying to see that we have a comprehensive list of or register of people with special needs, and also people, special need includes vulnerable groups who need intervention.
Sure.
So that at any time we are going to do intervention, all we need to do is to go and see her best and see how we can this thing. And also that will help us to avoid what? Multiplication and duplication.
You know, Honorable Minister, there's been this aspect of concern breaking down your interventions to get to the right people. It's good you mentioned that the homegrown school feeding program, there is hope it's going to pick up based on what you're feeding us with.
Yes.
But again, that concern has been for regions like the South-South, the Southeast, you know, the Southwest, in the past, not now, before the whole program was suspended, that some of these interventions don't directly get to those people. It is lopsided.
Well,
What would be different?
I will quite agree with you.
Okay.
You see, I've been on this hot seat with you several times. And I think when you asked me about homegrown school feeding program, when I was in education, I used to get blindfolded and I don't even know how to respond. You understand? But what is different now is the approach. I said we had a meeting. That meeting we had today, for us to see how we can chart a new course for homegrown school feeding, was multi-ministerial, let me use that word if I can. Because at that time, the education was represented by the Minister of State for Education, which hitherto I've never been, even, I don't know where it's really ongoing. So that at the owners of the pupils we are going to feed, they should have a stake in it.
Yes.
Ministry of Agriculture is there because we are also going to farmers. You understand? Because the homegrown school feeding program take into consideration three key issues: the pupils, the farmers, and the cooks.
Yes.
Or even dependent. You understand?
It's a
So,
chain.
It's a chain.
Yes.
You understand? So it means we have to get them. Even the Bureau of Public Procurement was there, so that we can be guided in terms of how can we fast track procurement process to avoid delay and whatever it is, and also to ensure that we follow all the diligent and due process in terms of procurement activity, which they were represented. Minister of Finance was there, Minister of Women Affairs was there, NIMSI was also there because we say we have the addition, but virtually all the stakeholders. So it is today that we've also integrated the National Steering Committee, of which I chair that committee through the Public Minister. So I'm chairing that committee. You understand? So this is to show that we are doing it different.
Yes.
Unlike restricting it to just merely homegrown school feeding unit program, to make it now more or less a program that can easily be tracked and this thing. And even we have also gone with an intervention that among our monitors there will be a place for civil society groups.
Cool.
So that I can be able to critique what we are doing. So that if we say we have feed it, they can come and say, no, you haven't done it. If we have done it, they will also come and say we have this. We want the people to speak for the government that what is expected before is what is being done now. So by bringing everybody on board, and this is not only restricted to homegrown school feeding program only, but actually all the program of the ministry we have committed to ensuring that we are accountable and we are also transparent. And this is what we have promised President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, so that the benefit and dividends of democracy that can be driven by that is achieved.
Okay.
When you look at that, you understand those few advantages will show that it is going to empower our people, farmers.
Yes.
It is also going to provide nutritional food to students, which can improve their performance, develop their malnutrition fast, and then they can be able to assimilate what is done. And most importantly, it will improve enrollment, retention, and even general outcome of our
Okay, Honorable
our
Minister, we
educational
have to
this.
pause with the conversation. We have to take a break. When we come back, we'll pick up. Please stay tuned.
What are we doing as a nation to first of all settle our teeming populace, especially the youth?
NTA's political package with a third eye on the nation's political scene. I am Fisa Ogunfuyi. Welcome.
You have to be very careful giving space to people who are obviously sponsored to further the agenda of some other groups.
There's a lot of questions. A lot of questions in a closed-door sessions. Some of these issues, some of the problems bedeviling of their.
In fact, between June 1st and July 17, 19-point-something billion has left the coffers of the NDDC.
I can say my constituency, they need everything because we don't have anything.
A method for digital literacy is a bot that you can use, you can interact to learn more about digital literacy.
Hello, it's our pleasure to have you join us on platform. I'm Ruth Aguwele.
What is the yardstick for measuring everybody's moral integrity? It's critical at this point in time.
How daunting has that been for the Institute in getting them abreast with all the legislative procedures?
The fact remains that one training workshop is not enough.
Thank you so much for being there. The conversation is on upscaling humanitarian coordination for Nigeria, and we have the Honorable Minister of State for Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction. Honorable Minister, just before we took that break, you were giving us insight into plans that are ongoing to revamp the homegrown school feeding program, but very critical of, people have come to me as a humanitarian correspondent to ask this question, and I'm throwing it to you now. Who are those that are supposed to be in the National Social Register? Some will say, why are they not in the social register? And I tell them, you're not a vulnerable Nigerian. You're not poor. So please clarify that for us.
Well, thank you very much. It's a very, very important question. But let me say that National Social Register is not a permanent destination.
Okay.
That's a key. So people should know that. Destination. It has entry criteria. It has criteria to be there. And during being in the register, we also have to develop a sustainable plan that will exit you so that you can be on your own, contribute to the GDP of Nigeria. Yes. Otherwise, if you allow people to remain permanently in the register, you are going to develop social dependency.
Yes.
And that has a serious implications. You understand? And that's why, because of that fear of social dependency, you find that as of today, even some state, that you have IDPs, internally displaced persons, they are running away from establishing IDP camps. Because once they are there, this is something they can remain there permanently and they don't want to go. Yeah. So also the social register is not a permanent destination, it's a temporary. We have criteria on how you get into it. And the evaluators, as they are going now, they will look at it, who are these. Once you get in, you are not going to remain there permanently. You see, we must know that there are two issues. There is what is called rapid shock measures. For instance, now somebody that is afflicted with humanitarian crisis, you understand? Even before you go into National Social Register, you need a rapid response so that you can be able to survive that shock. You understand? And then you move into the social register through enumeration and getting him there. And once they are there, you give them conditional cash transfer. Once that cash transfer is getting to them, you also prepare them with other aspects of the program. And that's where you have Government Empowerment and Enterprises Program, GEP, which will also prepare them and then for the ministry also to develop durable solutions. And in this, for example, let's say that we have a lot of IDPs who are currently in the National Social Register. And a lot of them are now passing through their durable solutions. And what are that? We look at the agriculture. Most of those who are internally displaced in Nigeria are agrarians in terms of their way of life.
Yeah.
And they have left their distance. So what we try to do is to see how we can create a very good working and settlement relationship between them and their host community. And a lot of host communities have volunteered to give out. You know, Nigerians who are generous and very humane to ourselves. So they have given out their portions of the land, which is now being cultivated by the internally displaced person. The minister was in Borno. He flagged up the harvesting of Borno IDP and this is also another good area of the ministry of collaborating with this. The collaboration is that of the Refugee Commission, NALDA, Ministry of Agriculture, and Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction, which we now provide them. The community, host community, provide them with land. The two ministries provide them with monetary component of the labor, and then they also provide supervision and some farming activities so that they can also get their skill capacity built in terms of skillful
to become
agricultural
self-reliant.
Yes. So, and once that is done, after the harvest, we have this the 30-70 ratio. 30% of what is harvested is given to the IDPs as food component that are going to do to feed themselves. The 70% will now be uptaken by the government and purchased from the IDP and given them as cash component.
Wow.
Because if you have rice and beans, you need to buy gas if you are going to use gas for your cooking. You need to buy oil, you need to buy tomatoes, you need to buy this. So they need to have cash component. You understand? So, and then the other part of the cash component will also be used for other for those who want to go into dry season farming or any other adventures in terms of getting them what to do to earn more money.
Yes.
So that's this, and that we have seen it has succeeded, and very soon we are planning to see how we are also going to graduate those people out. Then on our own as a ministry also, we are developing a durable solution. We are looking at 3 aspects for now, which we are piloting. And in doing that, we have divided Nigeria into 6 zones. And coming next month, we are going to start that program, which will involve training of youth, both male, and in that we are going to be inclusive. We have reserved slots for male, for female, for people with disability, so that it will be an inclusive program. And we are looking at 3 aspects: the renewable energy, agriculture, and automobile. And each state will provide 27 youth in the criteria we have mentioned. It's a pilot.
Okay, so, sorry, Honorable Minister, 27 persons per state or 27 persons per local government?
No, 27% per state, because I told you what we are doing right now is pilot study.
Okay, just pilot.
Yes, a pilot study.
Okay.
And soon as we do that, we don't expect to pass more than 3 or more than we now upscale it.
Okay.
We don't want to go to full scale without addressing logistic issues, what have you, this and that. So that means the program will not collapse midway. So this manageable number we are using will allow us to see
like
how we can do the
run.
piloting.
Yes.
So that that's why I said pilot study.
Okay.
And for the Northwest, we are going to camp them in Kano. For the North Central, they will be in Plateau. For the Northeast, they are going to Adamawa.
Yes.
For Northwest, they will go to Lagos. For South, they are going to Delta. I mean, all the states we have are this.
Right.
So we camp them there and train them on. And then this is also another initiative we are coming in. We are bringing in private organizations so that they can also partake in it. For the automobile, we are partnering with GAG Motors, who will now use. We are going to use their addition to see how they can train people on automobile. And then one promise we have also with GAG Motors is that they are ready to absorb the best performing addition so that they can also be their own staff. Okay. And then for this thing, they are planning to have also regional office. Others can also be utilizing that regional office, and also they can stand on their own.
This is quite enlightening.
In agriculture, we have not said that we are going to, we also try to zone Nigeria into food-specific production. For instance now, If we are going to southeast, for instance, we are going to train the youth how to cassava farming, cassava processing, and many other things that can be done.
Yes.
Here in the North Central, we'll look at we develop greenhouses for them. If you go to those places like Kebbi, we are going to pay more attention into rice and rice production.
Yes, grains.
So wherever is, whichever crops is more produced in that area is what we are going to use. And we are also going to do it in such a way that we will be very, very highly considered in our selection of candidates. And in this, we are also partnering with the ITF. Okay. So that the selection of the candidate will also pass through that channel, so that CBing can be done without bias. Right. So these are some of the new initiatives and that's why I said the new initiative we have. We are not restricting the activities of Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs to be a sole owner of everything.
Yes.
We are emphasizing more on collaboration so that we can pull resources together and see how we can make it better and reach and access more Nigerians.
Honorable Sir, from all we've discussed, you could see that the ministry is doing quite a lot and you have a very huge mandate to work with.
Yes.
Nigeria has this challenge of refugees, and being on the driver's seat, I know you see a lot. Can you speak to us on it, especially refugees we have coming from our neighboring states into Nigeria? How do we address this?
You see, first of all, let's say Nigeria has adopted the International Convention for Refugees. Yeah. You understand? And then a refugee that comes has the right to stay wherever he wants to stay. Good. And he has to be supported to stay there. And Nigeria has not fallen short of that. Good. You understand? And we make sure that all refugees are being profiled to ensure that we are not admitting what will be a serious issue to us. You understand? And then when that happens, a refugee may decide to say that, look, what moved me, what drive me away from my ancestral home is no more there. And I'm comfortable to go back there. And then he has the right to be assisted to get back there through the United Nations Convention for the Refugee. And you can see that happen also because of the insurgency in Borno,
yes.
The Boko Haram, a lot of Nigerians lived to Cameroon, Chad, and many other neighboring states, even in the Niger Republic. So also right now, if you go to Sokoto axis, you find that a lot of them have migrated to some part of Niger Republic as refugees. Now, I was together with the governor of Borno State. We went to Chad in Jemina, Chad Republic, yes. Where we signed an MOU with Chad government and also with the United Nations Commission for Refugee to return and repatriate some of the Nigerian refugees based in Chad to Borno because peace has been restored. Okay. And as of today, the report have gotten the over 7,000 refugees that we are planning to return have all arrived safely. Whoa. And they have continued to do their normal activities. On this, we must also thank the commitment and dedication of His Excellency Governor Zulum of Borno State for being up to the task. Against all odds, he has succeeded in making them to feel that they are at home and they want to come back to home, and they have come back home. And the report we are getting now, because they have been there peacefully, they have been reintegrated, and they have been given some starter pack to commence some daily activities that they can sustain themselves. Those who are outside are also expressing interest. So very soon we'll be moving back to Cameroon and Niger Republic to see how we can sign MOU for them to come back.
Okay.
And the state government has or the federal government have made all that is necessary for them to get resettled.
All right, Honorable Minister, we know that Nigeria has enjoyed support from the international community, especially the United Nations. Going forward, sustainable funding and, new system of financing, what will be different in the aspect of supporting Nigeria with technical aid and also finance?
Well, put in summary, teaching you how to fish rather than giving you fish. And that is what is this. Yes, that's Nigeria is good enough now to go out of this dependency on foreign when I was in education, I made it here several times as part of our source of funding. That for me, I dislike the issue of not utilizing properly to the maximum the domestic funding. And even with humanitarian intervention, you understand? You see, if you feed yourself, it goes with a lot of dignity. It goes along with a lot with dignity. And even that is also one of the fallout, that humanitarian intervention henceforth must be in dignified manner. Not that you give people, after they have been humiliated, they have suffered everything, and you end up also showing them in a lot of social media and in an undignified way.
With handouts.
That is not really what it should be, and that is not even a humanitarian intervention. So we are emphasizing, and that's why we said we are working, to ensure that we look inward. How much can we realize locally? And how much can we work hard to block leakages? You understand? Blocking leakages is even more important than bringing, because the little that government is...
When you block leakages, you utilize efficiency.
Yes. So what the government is given now in our budgetary allocation service wide board, and at disposition also of the president to give much in terms of presidential approval. If we can block leakages and then ensure that it is properly utilized and then it can be tracked,
yes,
definitely
important.
a lot can be achieved. So our innovation here is that we are going to look critically inward and see how we can make benefit of this. And that's why, if you look at the communique, it came up with a very strong recommendation that we must have. There is need for us to have a disaster, humanitarian and poverty trust fund. You understand? That trust fund, the meeting has gone over to look at how do you source money for that. It recommended there should be a budgetary allocation to the fund. There should also be money from private sector. There must also be money from philanthropists and any other person that link he can this. When that is also in place, and then that's why we also, as at now, we also resolve that we should have a strong legal framework. If we have a legal framework that establishes that fund, that also say this is acceptable when you are going to offer humanitarian assistance to any community, then dignity of Nigerians will be protected.
All right, we have less than 2 minutes.
Yeah, just one question. We've done the roundtable, we've strategized. What do you expect from the summit coming up?
Well, the summit that is coming up is to see how all the observations. You know, we have the issue with this. We are trying to identify a gap between policy and this. We have identified those gaps. Now, how do we address them? We now go and look at, I mentioned what we are taking. Once we address them, we now produce a document that the summit will ratify, that this is our working document, and it will come up in the form of a roadmap that we are going to follow.
We look forward to
block
that,
all
actually.
those gaps that we have identified.
All right, Honorable Minister, in few words, I know you're a man of many words, I want you to give Nigerians hope. It's the era of renewed hope, and Nigerians are expectant. The stakes are high for the ministry. What will you tell Nigerians?
Well, first is to call on Nigerians to trust the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. There are definitely the ongoing reforms, as even mentioned by the President, may have some pains. But in the end, a buffer will be provided that will reduce the pain. And then the overall outcome is the restoration of function of that arm that is broken, which is our economy. And once it's restored, everybody will have a day to smile.
Indeed, and bringing that smiles to the faces of Nigerians is what I'm sure they want to see. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister of State, Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction, Dr. Yusuf Tanko Sununu. Thank you for enlightening us on what the ministry is up to going forward. We'll put our eyes as developments unfold. Thank you so much.
Thank you for this opportunity.
All right, Tina Abeku from the Guardian newspaper, thank you so much. She's a humanitarian correspondent. Thank you so much for your time on platform.
Anytime.
Always our pleasure. All right, we've been looking at upscaling humanitarian coordination for Nigeria. There's a lot that needs that coordination, especially in the aspect of humanitarian interventions. And as the federal government continues to do its part, it is our sole responsibility to give the necessary support and ensure that we build a nation where peace and prosperity thrive. And that's Platform. I'm Ruth Aguwele. Bye.